Yeah, we're kind of like morticians in some ways. We're bad news is good news for us.
Hey there, everyone. Jamie with Self 1%, joined as usual by the Self 1% gang, head broker Dave Barlow and
Hello, dude.
Jason Barlow, joined by Rich Cercone at Equitable Finance to give us an update on the mortgage market and interest rates and see how things are doing. So without any further ado, Rich, what do you got going on?
Rates are plummeting. They're plummeting.
Is that the Silver 1% gang or the Barlow gang? I get confused, or maybe it's a interchangeable word. I'm not sure. But
Depends on who we're talking with.
Rates are expected to plummet by most consumers. Let's put it that way. Pretty much everybody I talk to, there isn't a person on earth, unless they've been like out in the woods for the last 3 months and camping with no TV, no cell, no internet. Everybody knows rates are the Fed will lower rates this month. So the question is, does the mortgage market already know it? And the answer is yes, they do, and they have already lowered rates in anticipation of this. So rates are down. Rates are in the low sixes, generally speaking. I have some first-time home buyers. For instance, I quoted a first-time home buyer this morning, kind of a lower loan amount. Those get more favorable rates. I'm in the 5.875% range with a first-time home buyer. So rates are very good right now. And the question is, what will happen after the Fed does raise lower rates later this month? The answer, I think, is predicated on what will they say after they lower the rates? Will they say they see continued weakness and a need for continued rate lowerings in the future? Or will they say something like, well, we think this might be enough for now. The economy seems to be relatively strong. And if they say something like that, that could actually make rates go up, even though they lowered rates on that day. So it's a little bit of a risky game to take a wait and see float approach to interest rates right now. You're getting a great rate, lock it in. But that is where we are in the interest rate market. Tomorrow morning is a huge day because we get non-farm payroll numbers, the unemployment report tomorrow morning at 8:30. And that number is always closely watched by the Fed. They have a dual mandate: keep inflation down and make sure that employment stays buoyed at a certain level. And so if they see a weak employment number, that means they need more lowering of rates. And so that will be something that would lead to lower rates going forward as well. So whatever that number is tomorrow morning at 8:30, a weaker number is a better number for interest rates.
So if the economists are expecting 150,000 new jobs in August, and it comes in at 150 or lower, then that's a good sign. If it comes in at 150 or higher, then that's a bad sign.
For interest rates, not so much for the economy, but yes, that's correct. So if you're rooting for lower interest rates, if we have a weak employment number, and yeah, you're right, there always is an expectation of what that number, should be. And I don't know what the number is. I don't have that at the top of my head, but let's say it's 150 and it comes in at 75,000 instead of 150, or it comes in at 125. That shows less jobs being created. That calls for more stimulus of the economy because we've got people losing their jobs. We need to stimulate the economy so employers will hire more. And so that is correct. A weaker number would be good for interest rates.
All right. Well, it's the same old that we're rooting against the economy to get mortgage rates down. And Rich, I blame you.
Yeah, we're kind of like morticians in some ways. We're bad news is good news for us.
I like that. I'm going to steal that. It's like, your bad news is good news for me.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Well, we'll have to see what happens here tomorrow morning then and report back in. Jay, do you have any thoughts on what do you expect? Expecting numbers to be low?
I think what Rich is talking about, like from the seller's perspective or the buyer's perspective in the market is that a lot of people think that, like Rich is saying, when they drop rates officially, here in a week or two, I'm hoping my listings start popping again here. I'm thinking a lot of buyers may be holding back because they don't realize rates are already low. And, I've even seen, like you guys are talking about these numbers. I mean, sometimes just the jobs numbers being off, up or down, doesn't really even matter. Just the fact that it's off the prediction will spook markets sometimes. The markets are weird. I think a lot will hinge on how they deliver the message. My prediction is if the numbers are really fudged the way that I suspect they have been, this report will probably come in pretty close to the projection. I don't think the administration would want to spook it one way or the other. So my guess would be that this number comes in right around the expectation, within a fraction of a percent off the number. And then it'll get revised, of course, 2 months later. But by then, elections are already, in full swing and we're off to the next distraction. So I think buyers will pop here in a couple of weeks, even though they should be popping right now. And if you think about it, if you're a buyer, why would you wait for everybody else to start buying? I mean, right now is the time to strike. Some sellers are anxious. Homes are sitting a little bit longer. I'd be making the move.
Coming up on winter.
Yeah, I make the move now. Like me and my wife talk about buying a home. The springtime would be great. Who wants to move in the winter? But I mean, the lower activity times are typically August when school's going back in and around the holidays. And so if I want to avoid bidding wars and competition, yeah, I'll be out in, November, December. But really, like I said, right now, buyers have paused. And so I think it's a good, anytime, I guess my philosophy is just do the opposite of what everybody else is doing. And so if everybody else is pausing, now's the time that you should be considering go make the move and buy. When everyone is buying, yeah, that's not maybe the best time to pull the trigger.
Well, we also have the most active listings in the Columbus MLS.
Yeah.
We have more listings today than we have had since 2019. And so, inventory levels are up. Rich, interest rates are coming down. I did check the consensus for tomorrow. The number, we weren't too far off, is 160,000 jobs is what they're expecting to have been created in August. So depending on that number, but that's all forward-looking information. And I think that, Jay, it seems like to me that with my listings, if they're priced right, they're selling. If they're overpriced, the market knows it, and they're not selling. They're sitting, and so typically we know within the first weekend, the first 2 weekends, of what kind of action we're going to have on a listing and on its price model. I've had plenty of listings here in the last 30, 60 days that I get one offer, and that offer is an overbid because the buyer and or the buyer agent thinks that they are bidding against 2 or 3 other buyers, and they're really just bidding against themselves. And so, it's good for the seller, but I think that with the number of listings that are currently active, you do have more choice. And if I was a buyer, I think I would be looking at houses that have been sitting on the market for 30, 60, plus days, because I think those sellers are the ones that would have to be a little more proactive in trying to find a buyer, because now they've just been sitting. So I think it's a good time.
And Dave, I want to point one more thing out is, you could find a home that you love, go into contract. You don't have to lock a rate in right now. You could start your application in a floating status. So the rate is floating and you're waiting for the September rate decrease from the Fed. In my mind, that's gambling because, like we said, there's forces that could drive rates up after the lowering of the rate. But if you're a gambler and you're dead set on the idea that rates are going to be down further later this month, you could get into contract on a house, start the processing of your loan, and say September 20th, when rates have come down, you could go in and lock your rate in then if you feel that way, as long as you know that rates could go up and you're taking that gamble that instead of getting a rate that you can get today, it might be higher at that point.
Right. All good information.
Yeah, guys. Well, thank you all for your wealth of knowledge in the real estate marketplace. Join us next week. We will be going back over numbers, and we'll see how things do work out here tomorrow and keep everybody updated. Thanks, Rich, for joining us.
Thanks.
Appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, guys.